Learn to play and you'll want to do it every day. Squash. Play inside the box.
You're watching Rogers TV. This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers Television, Grey County. I'm Fred Wallace, along with Denise Reid, our co-host, and we're going to have an interesting show today. Our show today, our host charity is Brightshores Health Systems Foundation, and you can always find out more about them at brightshoresfoundation.ca. Before we meet our guest today, Denise, we want to talk about what Living Well, Giving Well is all about, what our concept is, and why we're here and what we're after.
Well, we're very lucky today because we have Willard VanderPloeg with us today, and he was one of the founding fathers of the Living Well, Giving Well, and yeah, and I'm kind of interested because people have asked, how'd you come up with the name? I mean, living well, giving in your community, whether that's through volunteerism, through donations. We've had lawyers, we've had financial advisors, we've had volunteers, and it's all about what can we do in our community, make us feel better, but also charitable organizations feel better, and how can we give to charities, and how does that look?
And how can we give to charities when our time on earth has finished? And again, we direct you to willpower.ca. Before we meet our guest today, we want to also remind you that coming up in the program today, we'll be seeing a video that showcases the Meaford Hospital Foundation. You can always get more information about their campaign, including the C-Arm campaign that's taking place right now, by going to mhfoundation.ca. So, on with the show today. Denise, let's meet our guest today.
Well, as I mentioned already, we have Willard VanderPloeg from the Brightshores Health Systems Foundations, and Joanne Horton, who is a lawyer here in Owen Sound. And I'd like you guys to just kind of introduce yourselves a little bit. Joanne, how about you go first?
Sure. So I'm Joanne Horton. I am part of the Horton & Horton legal team. I am a third-generation lawyer, so you can consider that a gift or a genetic defect, as you wish. And so part of my practice includes doing will and estate work. So this is an important topic, and giving back to the community is something that's really near and dear to my heart.
And Willard, Brightshores Health Systems Foundation.
So I'm charitable giving advisor for the 5 charitable foundations that raise funds for Brightshores Health System. They run 6 hospitals in the northern part of Grey Bruce, plus their new wellness center, which just opened in Owen Sound. And really what my job is all about is helping people to realize their philanthropic dream, how to give a fantastic gift to charity and get as much benefit out of it personally as you are benefiting the community. So I deal mostly with gifts and wills, endowment, that sort of thing.
So how did the Living Well, Giving Well? You tell me. I've been telling our viewers, Willard's made...
I always throw it to Denise, but here's
sure,
the founding father.
Willard and Stuart Reid, right?
Yeah, I work a lot with Community Foundation Grey Bruce. Stuart is a fantastic partner to have, and we've worked together for years and years. The Willpower campaign has 14 charities sponsoring it locally in Grey Bruce, and of course collaborators that Stuart and I are. We invited them to get together to meet and think about how we could promote the Willpower campaign as one. And originally we thought, maybe post-COVID, people are comfortable with getting back together again. We were thinking about doing estate planning sorts of workshops in various communities through Grey Bruce. And we may ultimately do that, but that idea changed into the idea of doing maybe a podcast related to estate planning and special gifts to charity, thinking that we could just reach a lot more people for the same investment in time. And ultimately, with Rogers' facility here and their volunteers and its ability, the team's ability to do the technical work, it just was a really simple option, easy option to come and do Living Well, Giving Well as a Rogers Television Grey County show. and video was a new venture for me. It's been fun. It's been a really great project so far, and thanks to you for agreeing to host for us. That's
Well,
great.
that's right. If it wasn't when I was asked, I said, "Is Fred?"
As long as Denise was in, I was in.
And I said, as long as Fred's in, you know. I mean, we've volunteered a lot in our community, and I mean, there is that feeling of when you give to somebody, that warmth, but whatever the organization you have been involved with is hopefully feeling the same. We've had a relationship, Joanne and Willard and I, through the Hospital Foundation board. We volunteered on that board, and I know you're very community oriented, and I appreciate that. And so, as a lawyer, you with the foundation, there's a relationship there with your business, and we've talked about in my research here. I'm going to go with the letters DIY. I didn't even know what that was. Can you tell me what that is, Joanne? DIY? Is that like doing your own will yourself? I thought that's what it was.
Yeah, so as AI and computer programs get better, there are now online software that will help you create your own will.
Do you think that that's a generational? Like, I need to go see my lawyer. If I'm going to give my will, I'm going to see my lawyer. And I'm wondering, does the young generation, are they doing that more than going to see their lawyer?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure I'd know, because those aren't wills that end up in my office. So if that's what's happening, I still do lots of wills with young people. I feel having a will is really important, so all of my first-time home buyers get free wills, because once they own property, I think it's important that they have a plan if something unexpected happens.
Okay. Joanne, we've talked about this before. I got my will done in my 60s, and it was probably much, much too late. When should people start thinking about having a will and the value of having a will in terms of their personal finance?
So look, like the next best time is now. Certainly by the time either you're having kids or you buy a house, that's probably a time where you want to start looking at that. You'll hear scary statistics like only half of people have wills. And you think, wow, then that must be chaos. But the reality is, if I start looking at my clients who are in their late 70s and 80s, it's not 50%. It's 50% of everybody overall. So how many 20-year-olds have wills? Probably not that many. How many of my 70 and 80-year-old clients have wills? Most of them. Right? And so I think that statistic's a little bit misleading, but I think, those are sort of the two times where I think you want to start looking at having a plan in place in a will is, as you're buying property, if you've got kids, if neither of those things happen, probably by the time you're in your 50s, you might think, well,
I missed by a decade.
Well, I think that when we talk about, if it's simple, if we just have a house, which in this day and age, we're very fortunate if you do,
right.
That's maybe a simpler there. But wills can get very complicated. And I think that I don't have the expertise in figuring out what I want to do. Hopefully by the time they come to you, though, people have maybe talked to their families about what they want to do. We talk about a trustee, that too. Do you find that when people come to you, they know what they want, or they're saying, hey, please help us?
People come to me at different stages of readiness. A lot of times they have answers to the simple questions: who would be in charge if something happened to you? But they haven't thought of the backup plan. Or that their backup plan is somebody that they travel with because they're a family member and they travel with them twice a year. And what if something happened while they were all away together? And they may know that they want to leave everything to a spouse or a partner, and if something happened to both of them, to the kids, but they don't have a plan what happens if they were on their way to Disney World and the unthinkable happens. So sometimes they have certainly the kernel of the plan, but there's some robustness that's maybe missing, right?
Well, and that's something that you as a lawyer with your experience and that can help out with. And you've already gave me, I travel with my kids all the time. I'm very fortunate that way that they still want to travel with their parents. And I'm thinking, wow, what would happen if we're all going on the same flight, we're sitting beside each other? What would happen? if that was the situation.
See, now you're not going to sleep tonight.
No, I might change my travel plans.
You fly on that plane, I'll go on this plane. Joanne, are there advantages to a do-it-yourself will as opposed to what I did, which was I went to Middleborough and Stevens. I apologize, and Alex Reid looked after my will. Are there advantages or disadvantages to do it yourself, or pros and cons? I guess maybe is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so I mean, I think one pro is you can do it from the comfort of your armchair. You can do it in your own time. You can probably do some of it, put it aside, come back to it later. You may be able to do changes once you've done the will. Some of the programs will allow you to go back and sort of readjust the plan. And if you do it in the short term, they charge you less than if you come back, 5 years later. That may change in their setup. So I think I think sometimes a will is better than no will. Right. There's some exceptions to that. I think the con is it may not ask you all the right questions. Okay. There's some programs out there, and I see things like they refer to attorneys. That leads me to believe it could be an American product, or it's designed by Americans. And when they say, we can do a will for anybody anywhere in the world, I would not recommend. Probably that is who you want to use. Or somebody who says, you can do it for free and you need to do a will right away because otherwise the government's going to take it all, which is a complete urban myth. And so if they're using scare tactics, if they're using language that seems unfamiliar to sort of law in Canada, those are maybe not the people that you want to use. And if you use them, and you might end up with a product, it just doesn't track with what you need, in Ontario. And it's not the same in every province, right? So people think, if you live in BC, you can sign your will electronically. But if you're sitting in your armchair in Ontario and you do it with a BC product and you sign it electronically, it's not valid here.
Willard, you've been nodding all along. Your thoughts on what Joanne was saying?
Well, it's something I followed because back before my time with the hospital foundations, I helped a lot of people with planning, sort of pre-lawyer visit. And ultimately, I think I'm interested in this product. Ultimately, I think it's where we're going. It's an option I want to feel good about in the right situation. The products we have today, so back when I started, it was a legal will kit, and it was $25, I think, and it was a form you filled out. These days it's very much online, and absolutely I think it has a place generationally. I think younger people will be way more comfortable doing their wills themselves than they would making an appointment, facing their mortality across the desk from their lawyer. And so if it has a place, it might be for that first will, but having used a few of these products just to have the experience, limited options. It's for a really simple estate, and I'd consider my own affairs pretty simple. I'm 60. My kids are out of the house. We don't have a cottage. None of the generational things. I've only been married one time. I still am.
Good for you.
And I couldn't get the software to do what I wanted it to do. With the share of a child that would die before me, in that contingency. Okay. It wasn't flexible enough. So I think it's got some value in exactly the right circumstances. How you figure out if those circumstances are yours is the interesting question.
Okay. Yeah. This is Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers Television, Grey County. I'm Fred Wallace along with Denise Reid. Our guests today are Joanne Horton and Willard VanderPloeg. We're going to take a quick break and have a look at the Meaford Hospital Foundation. Please stay with us, and thanks for joining us today on Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers, Grey County.
Hi, I'm Diane Hilliard, and I'm a director at the Meaford Hospital Foundation. The foundation works with the community and to ensure that our physicians, nurses, and technical staff always have the equipment they need to provide expert and compassionate patient care. Contrary to popular belief, the province does not fund new medical equipment and other capital needs. 100% of the funding for those pieces of equipment are done through the Hospital Foundation with the support of our community. Donations mean faster, more accurate diagnoses, less invasive procedures, enhanced safety, less pain, and quicker recovery. The result is a faster return to home and to regular activities. If we have up-to-date equipment and facilities, we will attract and retain the medical professionals that we so desperately need. In 2023-2024, we had more than 13,500 ER visits, over 10,500 radiology procedures, 600,000 lab tests, and almost 6,000 inpatient care days. Patient care always comes first. Whether you give a one-time gift, become a monthly donor, or name the foundation in your will, you'll help to ensure that the foundation always has the financial resources to meet the needs of the hospital. With your support, we'll keep quality health care close to home.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers Television, Grey County. I'm Fred Wallace, along with Denise Reid. Our guests today are Joanne Horton from Horton Law, along with Willard VanderPloeg. And Willard obviously is connected to Brightshores Health Systems and the foundation. We just saw the Meaford Hospital Foundation. Willard was telling me earlier about On Air for Healthcare that they did back in December, which was a fundraiser. And also one of the things that you can find out on their webpage at mhfoundation.ca is the campaign for the C-Arm, which is going to be used for the orthopedic surgery clinic, and it will give them real-time high-definition imaging, which will assist with some complex procedures in Meaford. So again, go to the website, and if you can, and you have the space and you have the budget, please support our charities. And our charity today is Brightshores Health Systems Foundation, and to that end, Denise, we're joined by Willard and by Joanne.
All right. I'd like to ask you, Willard, you deal with, in your capacity, wills and people's estates and their givings to their community and that.
Yep.
I'm sure you've run into maybe not so easy dealings, or are all wills, everybody is in agreement? There's the will, there you go, and you can take it from there.
Yep. I will say happily, for the most part, things go very smoothly. Okay. We've had the odd situation where things weren't structured or drafted quite the way they should have been, or there's family that has felt a bit shortchanged, and there's litigation. I think at one point, this is a few years ago, I had 5 estates in some stage of litigation. Thankfully, all were, it takes time and some expense, but those situations were solved. I think happily, most of the time, if there's a plan in place and people have included a gift, that goes very smoothly. And,
Can that be avoided, Joanne, or is that
That's
just...
what I was thinking.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Human nature, that there would be disputes.
Some of it can be avoided by good planning, right? That people don't, for instance, leave out a common law partner or a disabled child, that there aren't adequate provisions in the will which are going to lead naturally to a will challenge. You can see that one coming. And sometimes you can't avoid it because you don't know that there's somebody in the family who, it doesn't matter what the plan is, they're not going to like it. Right. They're going to challenge it because they'd made up their mind long ahead of time. Yeah. And then there's not much you can do other than try to litigation proof it as much as possible. Hopefully, one of the advantages to working with a lawyer is they're going to have a file, and they're going to have notes about the meetings they had with their client, about the discussions they had, about what their intentions were, and then whether the will reflects those intentions. And if you're just doing it online, I think most people aren't going to keep notes for themselves. Right. This is what was going on. This is the context of what was going on for me at the time I made this particular will. And so you're missing a little bit of that layer. The other thing that you can be missing is from the capacity piece. Do you have a client who has any kind of health challenges at the time they're drafting their will? Right? How were they on that day? Right? Again, what are you going to do? Make a note to yourself if you're doing a do-it-yourself will? I feel good today. Right? I'm in recovery today. Yesterday was, that was a bit of a disaster, but today, today is on track. So if there are concerns around that, there can be value added to having a professional involved, because they can sort of say, look, I went through all the usual questions with my client. I'm clear that they knew what was going on. They had capacity to execute a will, and that there wishes weren't influenced by anyone outside.
And so when they come in, I mean, they must have, like, there's got to be like their financial advisor maybe hopefully has given them some information or whatever to go. How do you say, because we all want willpower.ca, we're hoping this, this show and encourages people in their wills to give to charity. Is that something you mention in the conversation, or if they don't, or how does that go about? Do we worry, like, I mean, everybody's worried about their family,
Yes,
their family, that's what they want.
Sure.
I want to take care of my family, but there's also, maybe 1%, could go to charity or whatever. 99% is going to your family.
Yep.
So wondering how that you entertain that when you're talking to your clients.
Yeah, so I have that conversation all the time about is there a community organization that they have a relationship with that they'd like to leave a gift in their will?
Yeah.
Is there an organization that they'd like to acknowledge? And that can be a set amount of money, it can be a percentage, it can be a share in the will, it depends on what's going on. I have more robust conversations with my clients who may have no children or no immediate family who have financial need, right? So they're in a position to consider those issues a little more carefully about what kind of legacy they'd like to leave in the community. But I have those conversations almost with every will client just to start the conversation. And my younger clients, that may be, hey, no, we got to get the kids, through school, launched, and
For sure.
but I've planted that seed. So 18 years later, when their kids are adults and we're having another look at, does this do what we want it to do? There's a follow-up on that conversation.
In your experience, is this common? Are you dealing with a lot of people that are leaving the 1%, like Denise, and again, Denise the millionaire, so she's leaving 1%.
We talked about that in previous shows. Yeah.
So she's leaving her 1%, and the charity, the organizations that Denise supports. Is it common? Do you see it frequently in your own work, Joanne?
I do. It is fairly common.
Good.
And sometimes it is a specific gift. There are clients who it is a gift of their entire estate to a particular charity that they have a relationship with. And so it really varies. I'd have to say the 1% is probably less common. It's often more than that, or it's a set amount.
Very good. Is it a complex process, I guess, is what I want to ask too. So for example, if I wanted to leave to Brightshores Health Systems Foundation and I wanted to leave 1,000 units of BCE, a stock, can I just simply transfer that?
You can do that either while you're alive, or you can put in your will that you have so many shares of BCE and you want that given to Brightshores.
Yeah, and I'm hoping the BCE goes up, by the way. Well, let's go.
Right.
Next week we're having
Zachary Brush.
From BDO. So that was the question I asked, and I don't know whether as a lawyer, is it better to give when you're alive, or is it better to give when you are deceased?
And
Tax
I think it
implications?
depends. I think it depends on the circumstances. It depends what you're going to have coming in as income at the time of death, and whether are you getting more advantage while you're alive in terms of tax
Right.
relief, or are you going to get more advantage out of the estate, and what's more valuable, right, to the person whose money it is.
Yeah. I mean, we're all, okay, how can we avoid the government getting more than...
Especially this government.
They get...
As it
they
stands
get
as we're recording this.
They get lots, all through your whole working career and your whole life. And so, is there a way to be giving to community, having a legacy, but also avoiding the taxes that occur?
So one of the taxes that's sort of unique to estate planning is probate tax, right? Or what's called estate administration tax. Probate tax is what my grandfather would have called it.
Okay.
But it's a common term that people still relate to what probating a will and probate tax. So that's 1.5% or $15 per thousand over the value of the estate that's more than 50. So a couple of ways that you can plan around that. If you have shares in a privately held Canadian corporation, you can put them in a secondary will, and you won't need to probate that will if that's the only thing in it, so you avoid that 1.5%. If you have property that you've held for a long time, so in Grey County, we're probably talking pre-2003, maybe 2006, So you bought in the registry system, the system where we used to file stuff away in a drawer. So if you bought in registry, you have one shot on death to transfer the property without probate. And so if you bought that farm and it's been a family farm and you've had it for 40 years, the value has gone up substantially. And so 1.5% of a $2 million property is significant. And so it does two things. You don't pay the 1.5% because you're not going to need to ask the court's permission to transfer it, and you're able to deal with it right away. You're not waiting 6 to 9 months for the court to process the application before you have the control that you need in order to deal with the property.
Our time is coming to an end rather quickly here, but you've got one more question.
Well, all I was doing was a comment. You're not going to learn that on an online will service, that kind of information. So there you go. That's another why we need to go see our lawyer.
And before we let you go, Joanne, the priority or criteria for setting a will, what's the number one thing people should know, and how can people talk to you if they've learned today from our session on Living Well, Giving Well?
Start somewhere, I think, with the will, right? You don't have to, you can overthink the plan and people can say, oh, I've been thinking about this for years. Let me get you out of your head and in action, right? To do something, whether it's with me or with someone else.
Okay, and if somebody wants to do it with you, where do they contact you, Joanne?
You can find me at hortonlaw.ca. You can find me in our office. We've been in at 1390, just across from the Legion on 2nd Ave West. Or you can give me a call.
Okay. Well, thank you, Willard, and thank you, Joanne, for joining us. And thank you, Denise. This has been a fascinating chat talking about wills and estate planning, and we'll do more of that on the next edition of Living Well, Giving Well, when our guest will be Zachary Brush. Zachary is from MNP, which was the former BDO, and we'll be talking to Zachary about that. Remember, keep a portion of your will and set aside a charity that you'd like to support. Visit willpower.ca, and thanks for joining us today on Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers Television, Grey County.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
With Rogers TV, you can cheer on the home team from the comfort of your living room. We'll head to the rink, the field, the court, or the pitch, so you don't have to. Tune in and cheer on your local amateur athletes on Rogers TV.
For me, it all started here.
I do my best work here.
Scores! Oh my goodness!
He is filthy.
This guy's dangerous from here, here, and here.
We're watching history in the making here.
Are you watching this?
And our fans are up here.
I'm here for it. It's all about what's up here and what's in here.